All right, so you should be here, right? This is chapter 15. If you're using the book, it's page 124. All right, so at the end of the last chapter, um, we had, what's her name? Gypsy. She was talking to Woodrow, and she kind of figured out that she thinks that Woodrow's lying about his mom going into this like other world. And the reason why she figured that out was because she sees that he's looking through the classified ads of the newspaper, and she figures out that he's probably looking to see if his mom is sending him a message. All right, so chapter 15. In midsummer, the apples were getting some size to them. They were bending the tree branches down, and you could smell them when the breeze was just right. But you couldn't eat them yet, because they were too bitter. Woodrow tried, and he got a fearful bellyache. There were blackberries and raspberries growing wild along the creek bank, and from Grandpa's patch of garden in that sunny place behind the shed, butter beans and green beans, summer squash, tender cucumbers, and melons of all shapes and sizes were coming on. It was the best time of year for good stuff to eat. Um, oh, sorry to hear that, Jordana. Yeah, yeah. Don't sit there wasting time looking at this nonsense. So, what used to happen back in the day is food was never year round, right? They didn't really have any way to store food like we do now. So, the whole food process has actually changed a lot, right? So, what people used to have to do is eat fresh food. So, because Jordani, stop wasting time, um, people used to have to only eat fresh food. So, that meant you can't eat food year long. So, he's enjoying all the food that's available this summer. There were always fresh berry pies cooling on the kitchen windowsills, and there was cornbread to crumble up in your vegetables, fried green tomatoes, and okra. You could drink cold buttermilk with your roasting ears and dribble hot pork drippings all over your garden salad. There was nothing like it. These are all like southern style foods. It was also the time of year for Mama's annual garden party, the social event of the season. It was always written up as such in Mount Necco's social section. In the past, I had dreaded means like feared, dreaded it worse than the typhoid shot. But that summer of 1954 was different, because Woodrow was there. He was interested in everything and almost everybody, and the way he looked at things with fresh eyes made them seem fresh too. It was an especially hot, humid summer afternoon, the second week of July. Does anyone know what the word humid means? Humid. What do you think it means, Mr. Junior?
I think it means like it's just like a regular like a regular weather or
It's
something.
not regular weather.
So like it's like warm.
It's not. Doesn't mean warm. Leify, you're really close to what its meaning is. She said raining.
Hail.
It's not hail and raining. What it means is that there's water in the air. Okay, so humidity has to do with like liquid in the air. So we kind of live in an area that does get humid, but if you live in like Arizona or Nevada, it doesn't get humid at all, right? So if it's like 110 degrees out there, you feel the heat, but you don't feel that same level of stickiness. If you were to go to say like I don't know, some of you probably have been to DR or Puerto Rico, or even Mexico. Um, those areas are very humid, so you feel that like stickiness in the air, right? So the summertime here in Jersey is a little sticky, but if I'm spending my summers in DR or Puerto Rico, it's super sticky, right? That's what humidity is. It's that like sticky, watery
And
feel.
New York, it gets so humid sometimes that you'll like your eyes will like your eyelids will sometimes like stick to the top.
Yeah, a little bit. But
It's
again,
really sticky.
if you go to like Las Vegas or you go to Nevada, it's not very humid, so it feels like really dry. It's still hot, like it's super hot over there, but it's different. It's a different weird. It's a weird feeling. So that's what humidity is. Grandpa and Porter moved tables and chairs down by Sly Creek at the edge of the orchard near the treehouse. The gardenias there were in full bloom and aroma. It was my favorite flower. This is a picture of a gardenia. These are gardenias. Right. Where am I? Gardenia, gardenia, gardenia. Where is Gardenia? Ah, there we go. Sometimes I could smell it in my dreams. It was mine and Woodrow's job to get all the names of the women there and make sure they were spelled right for the newspaper. We were also in charge of serving refreshments, which consisted of dainty, that means like tiny, sandwiches of exotic substances. Do you know what does the word exotic mean? Anyway, you know what that word means? Exotic. So exotic usually means like not from here. Yeah, like it doesn't really mean fancy. It means like
It's
from
like a
some.
strange,
Yeah,
something strange,
yeah. So it's something
like
from
rare,
somewhere else, right? So it's like foreign. So something exotic is something that's not known
like
from that area.
exotic foods.
Yeah. So what they would say again, what an exotic food for us would not be exotic for other people, right? So it's food that is not from here, right? So something exotic would be not normal. So she's saying mints, nuts, and Mama's special drink, which she named peach ice. It was made with vanilla ice cream, fresh peaches, and ginger ale. Mama had me wear a plain white, sleeveless cotton dress with a real fancy ruffled red apron, red sandals, and red ribbons in my hair. Notice that they have alliteration there. Real, red, 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 red. That's alliteration. Everybody, and actually repetition, everybody oohed and ahed over me. Woodrow was wearing a short-sleeved white shirt, black pants, red bow tie, and he took his job very seriously. He wouldn't let anybody run out of anything. There were about 50 women there, counting Mama and Granny, and the five 18-year-old debutantes who were coming out that year. That meant they were now considered young women of a marriageable age and could be included in all the right gatherings with other women who had a certain social standing in town. All right, so you kind of see what this event does. It is a party for debutantes. So I guess similarly in Hispanic culture, you have quinceañeras, right? Like American culture also has something like Sweet 16s. It's kind of similar to that. So it's kind of like a coming out party for women. In this case, it shows that they're like available to be married. Okay, so that's what a debutante is. They're not really as popular in the north here, like the northeast, but like down south, it's kind of a big thing. It was a tradition that went back all the way across the water to the old countries. Since Coal Station was a mining town, I asked Mama one time how come none of the miners' daughters were invited to be a debutante. Mama just looked at me and said, "Oh, when you're a debutante yourself, you'll understand." Now, why do you think the reason is that they're not letting these miners' daughters be a debutante? That's the reason. Yeah, that's exactly the reason, Mr. Zumia. So it's a classism thing. The fact that these miners are poor people, only people of status who are rich are allowed to be a part of it. So that's basically the real reason. The mom's kind of like being a liar here. She doesn't want to tell her it's basically that they're discriminating against poor people. I figured I wouldn't be a debutante if I could help it, but to say that to Mama would be like saying I didn't want to live past the age of 18. Woodrow was immediately smitten with the debutantes, so I let him serve them. So he thinks these girls are like really pretty, so he wants to talk to them. Remember, he's like 12. These girls are like 18. They were really pretty, and they smelled almost as good as the gardenias. Gardenia is another flower, right? They were all wearing sweet sundresses in pastel colors, with crinolines underneath, high heels, summer hats, white gloves, which they very carefully removed before eating the delectables that Woodrow spread before them. Do any of you girls know what a crinoline is? The boys probably have no concept, but the girls maybe. Nope. All right, so crinoline. I have to show you a picture because there's no way I can describe it. These are crinolines. So women put this underneath their dress, and the purpose of it is notice how all these dresses are like wide out like that. So you put that under your dress, and then your dress is gonna like shoot out to the side and make it look like that, right? The old style, Southern style dresses or whatever, right? You see how it's all like puffed out? Yeah. It's a crinoline. Um, all right. So Woodrow spread before them. They fussed over Woodrow and they called him darling and dearest and precious, which were not your routine coal station words. Woodrow soaked them up like sunshine. That's an example of what is Woodrow?
Simile.
It's a simile. Yeah, Valerio, that probably would have sucked really bad. Women used to have to do like all kinds of ridiculous things just to like approve of men. Um, as bad as that thing is, what a lot of women used to have to wear is what do you call that? A garter belt, and it basically was like an what's the other word for that thing? I can't remember the name of it, but not a bustier. They used to have to wear this thing basically that like they it sucked in their stomach and pushed up their chest, and it was like supposedly there was like lots of stories of women back in the day who would faint. They would pass out because they used to have to wear this thing around their like stomach and chest that would like literally squeeze their body so hard that the women would be fainting because it was so like tight around their body. Yeah, so women have to be tortured, and you girls still have wear high heels or whatever, which is to me torture as well. Yep, yep. I don't understand why girls nowadays still wear high heels. It's ridiculous. That's like torture. Mrs. Osborne, Buzz's mamma, was a jolly wee woman who favored Mammy Yokum and little Abner the way she jerked herself around like a puppet, again another simile, intended to wrap her arms and legs around her own self, and the way she smoked cigarettes one after the other. Again, remember, cigarettes, very part of the culture back then, so it's not odd that this woman is smoking. Um, remember, who's Buzz? You guys remember who Buzz is? Who's Buzz? This is Mrs. Osborne, his mother. Who was Buzz?
This is like that mean bully
Yeah,
kid.
exactly. He's like the bully kid. Exactly. Buzz, her oldest boy, was her favorite topic of conversation. Whether anybody was listening or not made no difference to her. So she's just like very happy little lady who's just smoking cigarettes and joking about her son the whole time. He had such a case of the scratchies a while back, she said at one point. I don't know if it was poison ivy or chiggers or maybe even the itch. He never would let me see it. Woodrow and I looked at each other with perfectly straight faces. Why do those two have straight faces? Why does Woodrow? And yeah, exactly. But it had to deal with the revenge yet. So remember, they're the reason. Well, not necessarily the reason, but basically, Woodrow knew that he was sitting on top of a chigger hill and didn't say anything about it. Mrs. Cooper, the principal's wife, who had grabbed Woodrow under the chin that first day at church, said, "It's no telling what a child might pick up going to school with those hillbillies." Remember, Mrs. Cooper was the really nasty woman who said all those mean things to Woodrow at the church. She complimented me nearly to death, patting me on the head like I was a poodle, and she called Woodrow angel face till I thought he would puke on her if she said it again. So remember, this is kind of odd, right? So she's doing the opposite of what she was doing before. Remember, she's kind of known as being like a hater, and right now, she's doing the opposite. She's being super nice to these kids. But when Mama was far enough away and seeing to the needs of her guests, Mrs. Cooper leaned over casually and said to Woodrow, "What you hear from your mama, boy?" Woodrow's face flushed again. He's getting upset. Mrs. Cooper would never have said a thing like that in front of my mama, Love Ball Dotson, sister developer and leader of Coal Station's social set. Nothing, Woodrow mumbled, and then he tried to move on. "And I doubt you ever will," she called after him. "She was an impulsive thing. Hard to tell what she's done this time." And again, she's being very nasty. The debutantes, again, those are the girls, the 18-year-old girls, who were standing nearby, looked away and pretended they didn't hear or see, but they did, and Woodrow knew they did, so Woodrow's getting embarrassed. I watched him walk over towards Mama's kitchen. "She called me a cow, you know," Mrs. Cooper said to me. "Who did?" I said. I was thinking to myself that I would never insult a cow in that manner, but I didn't say such a thing. So again, she thinks this woman's so horrible that it's actually an offense to the cow and not to her. "Belle Ball," Mrs. Cooper went on. "She was in ninth grade, and I was her English teacher. She said it right in front of Mr. Cooper. That was before we were married. I'll never forget it. And I said to myself then, there, this girl will never amount to a hill of beans. And you see, I was right. So now we know why Miss Cooper has been treating him this way. Why? What is the reason why she's been treating him like that? What is the reason? No, it wasn't that. She wasn't after the husband. Yeah, it's kind of revenge, right? So basically, Mrs. Cooper was insulted. She had a ninth grade student, Belle, who called her a cow, and she did it in front of her husband. And she was probably embarrassed, right? She made her look like an idiot in front of her boyfriend at the time. So now, because ever since then, she's like had a grudge. So that was it. As a young girl, Aunt Belle had embarrassed her in front of her boyfriend, and Mrs. Cooper had carried that anger with her all these years, so that now it was bitter acid she was spraying on Woodrow in retaliation. That's a metaphor. So she's comparing the meanness to acid. Is it a good idea to hold on?
Mister, I gotta go real quick because I need to go somewhere with my big sister.
Okay. Trying to make me cry, Miss Estevez. It's very sad. Is it a good idea to hold on to grudges? Yeah, very bad. Grudges are one of the toughest things to let go, but the only person who winds up suffering is you. Yeah, you wind up being angry for no reason. It's better to let things go. So, Woodrow came back with a tray full of tall, frosted glasses of peach ice. Remember what's in the peach ice? What three ingredients? Who remembers that? There were three things in that peach ice. What are they? Ice cream. What were the other two ingredients? Ginger ale, and obviously no vanilla. It's called peach ice, not vanilla ice, Leafy. Ice cream, ginger ale, and peaches. Yeah, peaches, good. And she resumed his duties as if nothing happened. So he's going around giving these girls these refreshments. I saw him lean over and whisper to one of the pretty debutantes where she sat on a pink blanket. She giggled, and I was thinking, well, what do you know about that? Woodrow's learning to flirt. Then I got busy, real busy. In fact, I couldn't keep up. Every time I surfaced for air, somebody needed something else. I made about 100 trips to Granny's kitchen, where Grandpa was doing all he could do to help without actually getting amongst the hens, as he called them. It didn't occur to me to be insulted. The women did put you in the mind of a whole lot of hens. So that's an old term that they used to use to refer to women, hens. Generally, it was actually for like older women that they would call hens, but again, it's an insult. It's not really not a nice thing to be saying about a woman. I noticed Woodrow was trotting pretty regular to Mama's kitchen, where the ice was stored in the freezer, and the peach ice filled up the Frigidaire. The Frigidaire would be the refrigerator. It was so hot everybody was drinking a lot of it. I saw him offer Mrs. Cooper some and then whisper something to her. Mrs. Cooper clapped one hand over her mouth to stifle a sputter and reached for the glass with the other. Right, so make sure that you are doing what you're supposed to be doing, Miss Hernandez. Yes, you are sus right now, imposter. No more imposters are allowed in here. Yes. So what is he doing that's really strange? What is he doing, Jordani, that's really strange? Yeah, pay attention. Oscar, you are the imposter. Yeah. He didn't tell her something really weird. What did he do? He actually went up to her and they were laughing. Okay, so he's kind of being really friendly. This is not normal, right? So remember, this lady is the lady who's been nothing but nasty to him. And now he said something to her and she's laughing. One thing was sure. Woodrow would not be flirting with Mrs. Cooper. So what was going on? As I stood there puzzling over it, Granny whispered to me, Mrs. Osborne is trying to eat and smoke and talk about Buzz all at the same time, and she's dribbling. Can you fetch her a napkin? So I got busy again. As the sun moved across the sky, The women clucked louder and got happier, especially Mrs. Cooper. She slipped into a fine mood. She was laughing and complimenting people, talking about how much she liked first this one, then that one, which was not a bit like Mrs. Cooper to go on like that. Why, she was as pleasant as Mrs. Santa Claus. That's an example of simile. But the thing that beat all the way was that she and Woodrow buddied up. Every time he would bring her a fresh glass of peach ice, and she really was putting it away. That means she's drinking a lot, all of it. She would giggle like a girl. She even started reminiscing out loud. So, what strange behavior is going on with Cooper? What is she doing? That's weird. Josh Guard. Stay focused. Yeah, she's being very nice, right? So she's usually nasty. So she's being nice here. Me and my sister, Audrey, she's a nurse in Roanoke, used to wake up with a creek on a hot day like this and gather tiger lilies. We had the best times. That sounds like fun, Mrs. Cooper, Woodrow said. I wish I could wade in the creek again, she went on wistfully. I wish you could too, Woodrow said sweetly, and patted her on the shoulder. In light of that conversation, I shouldn't have been surprised a little while later to hear Mrs. Cooper's voice down by the creek near the treehouse, but I was. Come on in. It's wonderful. I eased my way through the powdered perfumed ladies on the creek bank, and there I saw Mrs. Cooper with her dress tail pulled up to her thighs. This was the same Mrs. Cooper who in the past lay awake nights thinking about ways to put a stop to folks' fun. So this girl is acting really crazy. Actually, she's not a girl. She's older. What did she just do? What did she just do? Jasper. Yeah, so that's what it seems like's going on, right? Seems like he might have put something in her drink. So this woman, yeah, is swimming in the creek, so she's acting nuts. She just went in the water. Again, this is supposed to be a party where these people are supposed to be like presenting themselves as like civilized, and this woman is now in the water. Come on in, girls, don't be proud. And then she giggled. The other women stood on the bank that's outside of the water, uncertain, not knowing if they should be embarrassed for Mrs. Cooper or laugh, jump in with her, or what. You could almost hear the whirling in their very proper heads. There was nothing in the etiquette books, that means like how to behave, about creek wading at an elegant garden party. I declare, Gypsy, Granny whispered to me for the second time that day, if I didn't know better, I'd say she's drunk. So the grandma thinks she's drunk. Drunk, of course. The bottle of rum in our kitchen. That's why Woodrow kept going in there. He had gone to get Mrs. Cooper drunk. Oh, no, Granny, I said in the most scandalized voice I could find. Mrs. Cooper doesn't drink. Suddenly, one of the debutantes kicked off her white pumps. That means she's taking off her shoes. What the heck, she said, as she gathered up her pretty dress tail and crinoline in a bunch, and she went splashing into the creek. I'm hot. So now one of the young girls went into the water. Me too. It was Mrs. Osborne jumping in. That's Buzz's mom. Did he put rum in all the peach ice? This is Gypsy thinking that. Then another debutante. Geronimo! That means she's jumping in the water, obviously. Mrs. Cooper was laughing so hard she suddenly lost her footing, and she went flying backwards into the water, wetting herself all over. The two debutantes, also laughing and splashing, went to her aid, and in that process they went down too. And there they were. Somehow it didn't quite fit into the picture of the event of the season, as it was usually referred to in the column of the Mountain Echo. I looked around for Mama. She was standing back a piece from the spectators, her pink polished fingernails resting lightly at her pretty white throat, totally dumbfounded. So now the mom is obviously, love is like blown out of her mind. She's like, oh my God, what the heck is going on? Woodrow was standing a few feet away from me, watching the four women in the water and enjoying himself immensely, so Woodrow's like laughing at this all. I eased over to him. Woodrow, did you put rum in Mrs. Cooper's peach ice? No, Gypsy, he said calmly. I didn't. Then what? How? Just an experiment. I wanted to try with the power of suggestion, he said, and his eyes lit up again. What kind of experiment? I said. You see, there wasn't any rum involved, no alcohol at all. What I did, you see, I told Mrs. Cooper that her drink had a bit of rum in it. Her mind did the rest. I didn't figure on her going splashing around in the creek like that. And then Woodrow laughed out loud. What about the debutantes, he said, and Mrs. Osborne? What did you tell them? Them? Nothing. They're just hot and they're cooling off. right? So again, Woodrow was able to trick Mrs. Cooper into thinking that he was doing what?
Drinking alcohol.
Yeah, drinking alcohol. All right, so now you have some questions on Socrates, which I will start after I stop this. Where's the button? I want that one.